do you bring that cost down?
Well, you know, I haven't read that story yet. I have it on my iPad. Somebody sent me that Ohio colleges are really expensive. First of all, our colleges need to think of themselves as a business, and they need to think of the students as customers. I've taught in universities, and it's not just Ohio universities. I've seen glaciers move faster than the decision-making process of our universities. However, Gordon Gee, who led the effort on the capital bill, that was a big breakthrough to get all the universities working together to try to figure out who needs what. But we also, you know, I favor, for example, independent audits of all of our universities and public institutions. We don't know what it is. Gordon's trying to privatize a parking garage, and you think he was trying to sell the Ohio State football team. I mean, it's so absurd, the objection from inside that place. The universities are the last place in America to reform. They have higher cost growth than our healthcare system, and I'm appointing people to the Board of Trustees who are really good members. No more political hacks. No more who's your buddy and we appoint them. We're getting the best people we can with a business attitude to try to reduce the cost. We've made progress with construction reform. We've made progress with the idea of graduating in 3 years. We are not done with the concept that professors ought to take a whole nother course and teach. We have to change this, but this is a cultural change that's very difficult. And frankly, what we're doing now is getting the cultural changes that we've talked about. Workforce development, it's a change in culture. The fact that we're doing a budget in an off year is a change in culture. And you know, I think we're winning on that. But I've got to tell you, sir, it's a long way to go. The other thing is we need more young people to begin their education in the 2-year school, to go to the community college for 2 years, reduce their overall costs. So it's the universities getting their act together, becoming more businesslike, figuring out how they can manage their operations better, giving children a better, or students a better opportunity to go to alternative types of education, more online higher education. It's a behemoth that needs to be reined in, and we'll get to. We are started on it, but it's a long way to go. A lot of work in progress here, which is why we can't. We're going to take off this afternoon, I think, and we'll be back. I'm actually going to take off part of tomorrow, but so it's an ongoing effort, and that's why the mid-biennium review and all this work is so important, because so much of these things have to be fixed. Okay. Yes.
Governor, and also to the President and Speaker, given the speed with which many of these bills move through the legislature and the size, do you have any concerns about mistakes or unintended consequences that may have ended up in there that will have to be addressed in the future?
Yeah, I'll let them speak to this, but the mistake and the unintended consequence for Ohio is to do what we've been doing for the last 20 years, which is nothing. That's the danger. The danger is not in change. The danger has been in the status quo, and so I love these guys that they saw fit to move it. And let me tell you, they're thorough. They are thorough people. This third grade reading guarantee, we battered that thing around. Look at the Cleveland school plan. I mean, this even though it moved quickly, it didn't mean that the scrutiny and the intensity wasn't there. And frankly, everybody here is pretty worn out from what's been done. But you don't have to sit around and navel gaze for forever. You know what stops you? Fear. Not the fact that you can't get the work done, but the fact that somebody's pushing you back and, you know, oh, you can't do that now. And the things that needed to be thought a little bit better, the A to F reading. Okay, that's one where we, had a big disagreement with them. They convinced me that they were right. They needed more time to study it, do it right, make sure schools are comfortable. That's fine. The financial institutions tax, that'll come up in the fall. I'm confident that's going to pass. So the areas where they feel that they need more time, we give them more time, where they're worried about the consequences. Tom?
Well, I would say be careful when you talk about how fast something moved, because typically in a legislative process, a committee will meet once a week. But what you saw over the last 7 weeks was committees meeting 2 and 3 times a week in order to give the bills a proper vetting. So while the time frame may have been short, the deliberative process was as long or longer, simply because we spent more committee time with things than we may have in the past. So just a different way in how we approached it. On a slightly different subject, I would like to acknowledge the team that the governor has, and by the cabinet members that are here. because I've worked with many of them, if not most of them. And you have people who are dedicated to making sure they fulfill the governor's mission, but they're great partners of ours in helping share information and work through issues and be responsive when we push back on some things that we don't think are quite right. And they're willing to sit back and listen and work with us, and that's how we make things better. And so I'd like to thank them for their work in the last 18 months, because they've been our partners and it's made the job a little bit easier.
I want to second that. This is an amazing cabinet. It's a really quality group of people who are intensely focused on the changes and reforms that we need in this state and need dramatically. And they have been most supportive and helpful, and I have their home phones. And the other thing I want to mention in our house is the chairman that we have. We have really been fortunate to have the kind of people who are willing to do the work, not just 2 or 3 times a week, but willing to be there on the weekends to get things done that have to be done. And they have, without question, been leaders within the caucus, but also have provided help and support to the governor's people as well. Some of them have a heck of a lot of experience, and I think that they have shown that as we worked together. There's no question that there will be some problems in some of the drafting. As an old appellate judge, I can tell you every so often somebody would say to me, "What do you think the legislature meant on this one of the other judges?" And I'd say, "Damn if I know. That isn't very well drafted, is it?" And those things happen. But the other side of it is that in the work that we've done this time, there have been a lot of checks on what people were doing. And amendments, you've got to watch amendments carefully. That part of the process, which I love, is something that has been done well. Will we have problems? Without question, there will be things that have to be corrected. But those things, I have said to my caucus that we may be back. In fact, we will be back later in the summer. And some of the things that perhaps will come out by that time will be focused on. We've got pension bill to get focused on. So there's a lot of work yet to do. But nobody should ever be embarrassed because some of the drafting is not perfect first time around. I don't know how often we repeat work. They haul that stuff into my office and sit it down, and I read it at night and over the weekend. And you know, I can see some things there. I've been around a long time, and I think that's a good question, but it's a question that faces every General Assembly, and we have really good people who are, if you will, the foreman in each of those committees, making sure the work is good.
Last question.
One more question,
Jenny.
Governor?
Yes.
You talk a lot about bipartisanship.